So, your objective is to convince myself and Miss K, who we both have rubrics back here, she's coming in a minute, you deserve the title of greatest Greek city-state from the classical period. So everything you say, you might say, here's how our political system works. It's not a book report. Don't just give us a bunch of facts. When you're done explaining how that aspect of your city-state works, then you turn into a salesman and say, that is superior to the Athenian model because, or here's why that makes our military the best. So you're selling the idea that you deserve the title of greatest Greek city-state from the classical period. You should say that a lot. All of you in your group should say, we're the best at this because. So, Athens. Your opening statement, the top part with the little gray grill, that's the microphone. You can just hold it like a mic. When you're done, you can pass it to the next city-state. Athens, you're on the clock.
Athens is named after the great goddess Athena. Athens is named after the great goddess Athena, who is the goddess of wisdom. Education is very important in Athens. Mothers and girls learn how to cook, sew, and run the house, and how to be a good mother and wife. And men learn drama, reading, and writing. Athens was ruled by the direct democracy. At first, it was an experiment that didn't last long, but little did they know that it was the most important gift that we received from the ancient Greeks. The social classes that Athens had were slaves, metrics, women, and free men. With these four classes, there were several subclasses, such as common citizen and acrobatic citizens. We also have the best naval of the century, Piney.
Okay, yield your time.
Yeah.
And don't forget, I'll always have the time right here so you know how much is left. You might want to glance at that periodically. Who are you?
We are Corinth.
You're on the clock.
Corinth is the best city-state because it is the setting of many ancient battles and events, and we have great things like our government, the oligarchy that we started, I believe, and our military, and our social classes, like we accepted colored people in not just as slaves but as actual citizens. In our military, because we allied with many, many people using their armies instead of our own men.
Yield.
Yield.
Picture yield sign on the road. I'm going to let someone else go because I'm done with my time. I yield my time.
We're Thebes.
You're on the clock, Thebes.
Alright, so Thebes here is the best city-state because we have the most powerful military. Our government system works the best, and our social classes are far superior to all of yours. Our military has won many battles, and our social classes are very well designed, and our government keeps the city of Thebes running very smoothly. I yield.
Pass it to the next Spartan, please. You just tell me when you're ready, Sparta.
Alright, we're Sparta and we're ready now. Sparta is clearly the best city-state of them all because, one, they have the most well-trained and the longest-trained military out of all the groups. Second, their social classes are amazing because they're all centered around the people that were born in Sparta, but if you peacefully gave up your lands to Sparta, then you could work and be paid by Spartans, and you could live with the Spartans peacefully. But if you were a prisoner of war, you were a slave. Also, the government, we have an amazing government, much like the government of the U.S., except we have 2 kings, 2 leaders, except their power is controlled, kind of, by a council of 28 elders that served in the military. And probably the main reason why they were the best is because we have the most movies made about us. I yield my time.
Thank you, Sparta. Last but not least, we have Argos.
Alrighty, so we're the Argos. So we first of all have a great and powerful city-state. We have had many smart leaders in all of our government and social classes and military. We also have so in the social class, we have rose to importance and became center of the Archeans. And then in the government was a monarchy. And then so the military is great and powerful, and it has many builders and carpenters who can build tools and weapons. And we have great and smart leaders who have trained and worked with our military to become large and powerful. Time is yield.
Picture a yield sign.
Okay, yield.
I'll take it. So, that was your opening statement. Most of you probably don't know anything about any of the other city-states, especially ones like Argos and Thebes and Corinth you probably haven't even heard of until this week. That's okay. My advice to you is when the other groups get up and talk about in detail their social classes, their government, their military, that the person who's in charge of that for your city-state takes notes or keeps track of things that they say that you want to bring up during the rebuttal. So, for example, let's say you're the Spartan military person, and you hear Athens talk about how sweet and awesome their navy and their triremes are. You might want to write that down and go, oh, during the rebuttals, they didn't talk about their army whatsoever. Maybe I should bring that up because ours is awesome and yours sucked. Or whatever. So on your Google Doc, you can put that there. If you need a sticky note from me, this is going to sound crazy to hear a teacher say, but if you have a Google chat between your group members going right now, you can talk to them and say, did you hear what he just said? You better bring that up without interrupting them and talking. Okay? So I don't care how you do that, but you want to keep track of those. Each round, I'm just going to pick someone else and say odd or even. So, odd or even? Do you guys want to go first or last for social classes, Sparta? First or last? Okay, you're going to go first, Thebes, and then it's going to go backwards. Corinth, Athens, Argos, and then Sparta. So, social class person, you have 3 minutes. Stand while you talk. You cannot interrupt them. If you need to talk to your group members, write it or type it to them. You are on the clock, Thebes.
So, the social order in Thebes was pretty much awesome. So, on the highest level were the rich people, basically the ones that live in the city. So they control what's happening there. Below them were just the normal people. The men, all of them are males. So the basically aristocracy in Thebes, it works like a pyramid. So the ones that are on top, like, control the people that are below them and so on. So the rich people that have money own basically the land that the free men were growing crops on and producing just food for all of the city. Women were not as valued as men, like they were kind of like so it was like they were the only class that was above slaves. So they were the ones that were kind of messed out, but so yeah.
Okay. Like the women, all they pretty much did was stay home and take care of the children and raise the women to be good, so to say, so they could like go on and find a good husband and stuff. The slaves were obviously not valued whatsoever. They worked. weren't really free at all.
What makes this a good or effective social class system? So think about it like this. They just gave us a 2-minute report on how their social classes work, right? Okay, nice. That was informative. What makes that good or better than theirs?
Well, they're not necessarily raised by kings or queens. It's just like, what's it called? Democracy. Like, there's no apparent ruler, but like, the noblemen take, like, how do I explain it? Like, the noblemen are ruling the men, and so on and so forth. Yeah. I yield my time.
Okay. Thank you, Thebes. Next, Corinth, your social classes. Sorry, I'll restart your time. There you go.
Okay, so the Corinth social class was very similar to Athens. Slaves and farmers were at the bottom of the social class. Merchants were in the middle, and oligarchy men, which they ruled our land. That's basically a group of the richest men in Corinth. They were at the top of the social class, and women inherited their social class from their father until they were married, and when they were married, they inherited their husband's social status. So it just depends on how you married into the social class for women. Slaves had no legal rights and were used as servants and laborers. Slaves were owned by anyone who was like a free man, and some of them were paid, but if they weren't paid much. But a difference we have from Athens is that Corinth accepted colored people as citizens. This is better. This makes Corinth better than all the other social classes because we accepted colored people not only as slaves but as our actual citizens, and so we were more advanced. And by the women inheriting their husband's social class, it's not like they had a certain role. They married into the class they wanted, so it's not like they were mistreated or anything. And yeah, I yield my time.
Okay, thank you, Corinth. Athens, you kind of got called out there.
Yeah.
Good thing it's your turn, Athens.
So we're both talking.
If you both did, you just get 3 minutes, however you want to use it. Ready? Corinth did a good job explaining here's how it works, and then we heard the magic words, this is why our social classes or our system is better than yours. We want to hear that from everybody. Athens, you're on the clock.
This is why our social class is better. Or our social classes. Even though to be in the upper class you had to be a man, women could also be in the upper class and all the other classes depending on what their husbands were. When you're in upper class, you were free from the economic burdens of society. And in middle class, you could vote and own land. And you also had a guarantee of economic stability and work. In the lower class, you could be a slave. You didn't have to be ranked as one of people in the slave class. You did have rights as a lower class citizen, and slaves were treated fairly like other free people. Like they could be freed and treated fairly, but
Okay, so we have had like certain people. One of them were the metrics. Metrics are a free non-citizen. They aren't slaves, but they're not from the cities. Just they're visiting Athens. But they did work doing housework. They also did hard-working work such as building, drying, rowing, and maintenance. And then we have women. Women in Athens had free rights in the male-dominated city. They were treated better than a domestic slave. Wealthy women had to stay at home in the household, but they didn't clean. They had slaves to clean, while poor women had to take on responsibility and more responsibility than wealthy women. Women was in whatever group, and their fathers or husbands were, and they could not vote or own property. And then slaves, they were very common in Athens. They would be sold as children from enemies and were treated fairly and could be fed. They traded in other countries, 1 or 2 in poor families and 50 or more in wealthy families. And then in society, Athens society was remarkably diverse. Children, immigrants, laborers, slaves, and women had defined roles. Some movement between social groups was movement between the classes came during times of stressful, such as war.
Okay, thank you, Athens. Argos, your social classes are next. Over next.
Okay, so Argos, even though you guys whenever the conquest of the Corinth in 146 BCE, we became very important and became the center of the Archean, and it was all because of the king Phaedon, and we became a very major Greek city-state.
Their clothes were workmanship. They had pottery and bronze sculpturing schools, which helped for them to learn how to do stuff. And tanneries and pottery shops. The pyramid went from gods and goddesses on top, and then the rich, and the citizens, then the non-citizens, then the free slaves, and just the slaves on the bottom.
Even though the slaves did everything like cleaning, cooking, worked in the mines, shops, and in the ships, the slaves were treated very well, even though they were considered property. And they had even
Yielding your time. Okay, thank you, Argos. Last but not least, Sparta. Your social classes.
So we're Sparta, and our social classes were the best of all because, unlike Thebes, our women were very idolized and very fit and strong and equal because they could own their own land, and they weren't born into womanry or trained by their mothers to live in a house their whole lives and just finally, I'm going to marry a man and then get out of here so I can just go live and clean another house. So our social classes start out with kings who ruled over Sparta, and they were put in check by a council of elders, and then it went to the aristocratic Spartiates, Spartan-born men, who were the next highest class of people. They were the stereotypical Spartan. They spent almost all their life in the military and training to fight. They rarely saw their wives and children, and their land was farmed by slaves so they could pursue the art of war. Next were the Perosii. These were the farmers and workers that were the descendants of people that willingly gave up to Sparta and peacefully lost.
so they were the ones that worked in the fields, and they were paid by Sparta. Next is the Helots. They were the slaves. They were the people that were prisoners from war that the Spartans won. They were constantly trying to rebel against Sparta, and any Spartan could kill a Helot if they thought that they were going to rebel against their masters. And then the women were in the class of their own. They could own land, and they had the right to an education, and they were physically trained, so they were extremely strong to guard their cities. And they were extremely fit because the Spartans thought that strong women gave birth to strong kids. Also, Spartan women were known for being the most beautiful, and the men thought, we're going to have beautiful wives and strong wives so we can have a better military. And I yield my time.
Okay, thank you, Sparta. Now we are going to move on to how you govern your city-state, otherwise known as your political system. You can also bring up any alliances that you were in or allies that you had. So, Corinth. Pottery. Are you sure? Okay. Even. Thebes, do you want to go first or last with your government?
First.
I'm asking you. You want to go last? Okay. So we're going to start with Sparta, and we're going to end with Thebes on government. So your one or two people with government should be ready. Okay, here we go. Other government people, take note of what he says so you can bring it up during the rebuttals. You're on the clock.
The government of Sparta was peculiar. It had 2 kings, a council of elders, which had 28 elders, which had to be over 60 to qualify, and an executive committee of aristocrats. The kings were in control of the army mostly during the war. Well, they had a lot of control, but the council of elders took some of their control, so they would have more of the rights to do stuff. And the council of elders made the laws, and they brought that to an up and down voting thing that the citizens did. There was no talking; they just said the law. If you liked it, then that law passed. The executive committee was voted in from aristocrat families. They were below the kings and the elders, and underneath them was only the normal, the citizens and the slaves. The government brought stability because, if someone was starting a riot, they would just let the military take over. All the things that were against Sparta, they just let the military take. Because it was easier for them to I yield my time.
Okay, Argos, you are next. You're on the clock, Argos.
Alright, so our government was a monarchy, so they were overall ruled by one leader, a king, but they did have a large group of only men that was a lot like Sparta's, so they first got the law. If somebody wanted a law, they would go over it, and if they decided that it was worthy, then they would take it to the king, and then the king had the overall decision whether it would become a law. And men had all the political power through that, and men were the ones who were for the military. That's about it.
Okay, so the women, they were always willing to go to the war. So
They also had to bury the dead. Most of the women from Argos went to Athens because they could not find anyone else to tie up their case. But that helped that Athens out. But the Argos were willing to do it. The government Argos took extraordinary diverse forms, and the monarchy. The most powerful king was King Thebes, whatever. And Argos system of government changed to democracy when the city allies itself to Athens. That's all I got. Yeah.
Thank you, Argos. Athens.
I know.
You're on the clock, Athens.
So our government was sort of a democracy. It was ruled by the people. Most government officials stayed in for about 1 year. The most important posts were the 10 archons who were elected by assembly. Spartan life was simple. They ruled using an oligarchy. They only had 2 kings who ruled until they died, and everyone had to follow them no matter what. The people didn't really have a say. While Athens, the birthplace of democracy, was based on the principle that all citizens of the city-state had the right to attend and speak at an assembly. This is good because everyone had to say what was going on, what was going to happen, or what was to be done. Athens was ruled by archons, which were the chief magistrates, who were elected annually. This is good because if the leaders were bad, they elected new candidates annually, so they could kick them out of office, and if they were good, they kept them in office. Alliances. Athens, during the war against the Persians, formed the Delian League. The Delian League was composed of the member states of Corcyra, Cephallenia, Ithaca, Zakynthus, parts of Delphi, Boeotia, Attica, Euboea, Potidaea, Methone, Stegira, Amphipolis, Corinthus, Byzantium, Pergamum, Skyros, Chios, Melos, Paros, Naxos, Delos, Kos, Rhodes, Miletus, Ephesus, Samos, Chios, Ionia, Mytilene, Lesbos, and Troy. All of these member states agreed to donate money, ships, and crewmen to the war efforts, so they always had plenty of stuff to go around. Athens made the Delian League an empire seeking opportunity and protection and believing of an empire of superior and natural order. So the education, the primary purpose of Athens' education was to produce thinkers, ones who were well-trained in art and science, and they were always prepared for war or peace. Most children were tutored at home until 6 or 7 years old, and then were sent away to schools in primary education until 14 years old. The schools are usually private, and almost anyone could get in, or had the chance to be intelligent because all the costs were really low to join in the schools. The older schools always taught military activities like running, boxing, and wrestling, so they were fit and very smart. And all were required to do really heavy reading, and even in the elementary schools, they taught novels and epic poems like the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Okay, thank you, Athens. Corinth, your government and alliances.
So Corinth's government is the best because it changed from a tyranny to an oligarchy. An oligarchy is a group of small people who have power in the government. And so what our government did was it worked with the citizens to, when we were unemployed and had unemployment highs, that we would have places where they could work and so that they wouldn't be unemployed anymore. We also was renowned for one of the cultural centers and trade centers of ancient Greece. Like, we increased trade with Italy, Sicily, and also we made traders convert to our coinage instead of accepting anyone else's. Some of the first tyrants or kings were Calypsius. He was one of the more favorite ones because even though he expelled his enemies, he let them settle in northern Greece, increasing trade with northern Greece. Some of our allies during ancient Greece were Athens, Argos, Thebes, Sparta, and Photia. That's it. Yield my time.
Thank you, Corinth. Last but not least, Thebes, your government and alliances.
Alright, in the 4th century, our government switched from oligarchy to a version of the democratic government. Our government was... Don't walk in front of the camera. Our government was superior because everything was voted in by the people who thought the law was right, and if it was wrong, people didn't. And if they didn't think it was right, it probably wouldn't pass because it was voted by a show of hands. This also makes our governments best because, say, if we had a bad government official, we would only have to deal with them for him or her for a year, and then he would be down. And also, anything that he was trying to do could also be rejected by the people because they have to vote on it. Our people also had to pay to get it into the assembly, not so the regular Joe couldn't just get in and pitch bad ideas. So mostly only the educated, smart people would be in there giving up good ideas. Our government was also the best because it is really fresh every year, and so not only are we always young and fresh, so is our ideas. We sided with Persia during the Xerxes invasion of Greece. We sided with Sparta against Athens in the Peloponnesian War. Spartan General Lysander is killed by our Theban forces at Battle of Argos. The Corinthian War between Sparta and an alliance of Athens, Corinth, Argos, Boeotia, and Thebes. This is just an example of how superior and great our communication skills and peacemaking skills were. We all used other people to climb our ranks and gain power and become the best city out of every one of you.
We win government. Okay, thank you. Military. I don't know.
Thanks for that.
Hey, good thing we have swivels. You don't have to physically be present. Who has any city-state not gotten to pick odd or even?
We haven't.
You wish for it. I have not. Just a trick, so when you're using this, if you walk really close to the swivel really fast, they can't track you. But if you go around it and go kind of slow, it will. So just pick two. Odd or even?
Odd.
Jeez, guys.
Athens, do you want to go first or last with your military?
Last.
You're first.
Thank you.
Is that you?
Yeah. So like this.
You guys are on deck. Sparta, Thebes, and your sacred band. I was going to say third, but followed by Athens, you're last. Okay, Argos, you were on the clock.
Okay, so the Argos military has tons of men. So first of all, they have, like I said in the introduction, they have great people that can build tools and use them and put them to use. And so one great fact is that, so this is mythology, but they had a war which was also known as the Trojan War. So these guys guys were the ones who built the Trojan horse, a great big white or wooden horse who the men hid in the horse and to go into the Spartans, their place, and so then they hid there, and when they were all jolly because they thought we Argos gave up and stuff, and so then they got drunk and all jolly, so we attacked and killed and conquered. And so, a fun fact for this, the Trojan horse was built in 3 days, and the gods that sided with us were the Hera, Athena, Poseidon, Hermes, and Hepatitis. And then, so, yeah, and to say we had very smart and genius leaders. That's how we built the Trojan horse. And yeah, yield.
Okay, thank you, Argos. Sparta, your military. You are on the clock.
So, to start out with, the Trojan War wasn't about invading Sparta, it was invading Troy. So, we had the most superior military because we started training earlier than anybody. We started training at the age of 6, and you couldn't go off to war until you turned 20, while the rest of you started training when they turned 18. So, most boys and men would live in the barracks from the age of 6 till they either died or retired, which they retired at the age of 60. To be in the military, you had to be a descendant from the original Spartans. Kings were either still in the military or retired military, so Sparta was completely centered around military. The Spartans were known for their bravery and their professionalism and their skill on the battlefield. They encouraged physical competition, and they married the girls and boys married the strongest boy or the strongest girl, and the fastest boys and the fastest girls. The elders, or the council, was completely made up of retired people from the military. They were a warrior culture, and they looked for leadership in teenage boys, and if they were president, and if they saw that, they were sent off to be in a secret police that was used to keep the helot class in check. And I forgot the word.
Yield sign.
I yield my time.
Okay, thank you.
Yield, guys. Come on. Yield.
We're saving that.
The most famous battle from all of ancient Greece, Thermopylae. They're the stars of the show. Are you guys gonna bring it?
All right. So, what? Okay. All right. So, well. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So, Thebes military is obviously best because Argos, the Trojan War didn't happen. First of all, and Kendra even said herself it was a myth at the beginning. Thebes military, we were obviously way more advanced in social aspects because we accepted gays. Gays, yes. They had a group of 150 pairs of homosexual lovers called the Sacred Band of Thebes. It was where they'd be be fighting next to their partner, which meant they fought harder, which obviously worked because we were the only army here to single-handedly defeat Sparta, the almighty Sparta. And then later we were joined up and helped up by with these other guys. And the Battle of Lecura, or whatever, Thebes overpowered and defeated Sparta by themselves. Some people might say it was an ambush or whatever, but we still beat them. A win's a win. In the Battle of Chaeronea, we all joined up to defeat Sparta again. All of us, the other two, Corinth and Argos and Athens. Hercules, the almighty legend Hercules, was said to be Theban and part of the sacred band of Thebes. And so, I mean, I know it's a legend and stuff, but still, that just shows how cool we were. In the Battle of Halitrus, Thebans overpowered and killed the general Linsayer, a Spartan general. And so, we've just been overpowering the Spartans a lot, the almighty Spartans. And sure, we joined up with the Persians, but you gotta do what you gotta do, so. I yield my time.
Okay.
Right here.
Thank you, Thebes. Corinth, your military, and then Athens, you will be last.
You have more. Look at you.
Sorry.
Alright.
Time is ticking.
Alright. So our military was very good at allying with other militaries. We made deals to our advantage to be able to do better in wars. We had a lot of allies fighting for us and helping us. A lot of battles we fought on our territory. Not sure why that helped, but because we knew the terrain. We helped win the Persian War and helped beat Sparta next to Thebes. It's better to have others fighting and dying for us than most of our military dying. We found a way to be trusted and relied on by everyone, and we used their militaries instead of our own. So it turned our military is as strong as the allied people that we fought with. We had Sparta at first on our side, and which was then in addition to our military, until after the Athens versus Sparta, when then sided with Argos, Thebes, Athens, during the Corinth wars to defeat Sparta. So we're better because we beat Sparta, because they're so powerful thanks to us. Yeah, thanks to Thebes and everybody else, but we still beat them. That's all that matters. I use my time, by the way.
Okay, Athens, your military. You are on the clock.
Okay, so we are Athens, and unlike Sparta, we don't spend our entire time looking for good looks and strength. We spend a lot of time on our education, which helps better our government and our social areas. Also, it helps us come up with the best naval of the century. We came up with the trireme, which was a long, narrow ship with a ram on the front. We'd use that to go at a fast pace with 170 oarsmen, to go at a fast pace and ram other ships at the bottom. Before, this was not used because the rest of you guys could not figure out how to get your ships to go fast enough. We also spent a lot of time in the younger ages becoming really fit by boxing and wrestling and running during school. Which helped when we were on ground to when we were on land to keep our soldiers fit and prepared. We were always trained for times of peace and for war. And I guess I use my time.
Okay, thank you. Now, what time do we get out today?
23.
Because I've never had class 7th period. So, rather than do rebuttals for like a minute and then run out of here then come back Monday and start them over. We will save those for Monday. What I need you to do with your 2 to 3 minutes you have with your partners, you need to put your heads together and say, what are some things we want to be sure to bring up on Monday? Like Sparta, you kind of got beat up there by Thebes and Corinth. You definitely want to have a comeback. Some of you are going to wait. I'm hearing more stuff. I should have read about that. You can bring that up on Monday.
Well, I should have read that.
So you need to talk to your group right now on that Google Doc or whatever you had going and say, here's what we have to make sure we bring up on Monday.
As a school parent, all of us in Sparta